Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Arizona in the United States. First of all, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If not, welcome back. I'm sure many of you returning have seen my ASMR Around the World series. It's an ongoing series where we go to every state, department, territory, governorate, province, what have you, in alphabetical order. We've reached Arizona. And I have a special surprise for you all because for the first time in my series, I went and visited a region. I visited the Capitol Building Museum in Phoenix, Arizona, to learn more about the history of the state of Arizona. So I will be putting in clips that I filmed in the Capitol Building for you to enjoy. But let's talk about the geography of this very, very interesting state. I guess if we go north to south, we start off with one of the most famous sites and probably the most beautiful site in the United States, the Grand Canyon. You can see that it spans this whole area here, cut by the Colorado River, slicing through layers of rock for billions of years to create the world's most stunning place in the world, I think. The most stunning canyon, the most stunning cliffs, all of that. We'll read its UNESCO site page in a minute after we finish geography. Not far off, we have some more interesting sites. We have the Painted Desert, where we can find the Petrified Forest National Park. I didn't read too much into it because petrified wood is created when wood sits at the bottom of water and transforms if it's there for long enough, and then when that water's gone, it leaves behind all of this strangely decayed wood that is petrified. And all the rocks in the Painted Desert have incredible stripes running across them showing the ages of water and mineral makeup and all of that. Also, within this area, it bleeds into the other states. This area is known as the Four Corners, which is kind of hard to see here. This is Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, the Four Corners. They meet here. It bleeds into the rest of the Four Corners area, but this is part of the Navajo Nation, the Navajo Reserve. I believe it's the largest Native American reservation in the United States. But this area is part of the Northern Plateau area. You can see marked here. It's very flat for the most part and rocky, except in the places where it is not, where there are big mountains poking out and mesas, and then of course deep canyons carved by the rivers in that flat rock, especially, the Grand Canyon. But there's many others in the area. When we move further down into central Arizona, it gets very mountainous. We have the San Francisco mountain range, which threw me through a loop when I was visiting Arizona because I heard San Francisco mountains and thought, wait, there's no mountains in San Francisco, but not San Francisco, California. San Francisco mountains, Arizona. Very big peaks, lots of rivers, lots of trees, and wildlife as well. Then when we move to the south, we have the Sonoran Desert, which also bleeds into Mexico. You can see the border with Mexico right here. I should be using my pencil. What am I doing? The Sonoran Desert has an incredibly unique landscape. Mainly what was my favorite when I visited were the saguaro cactuses, and down here you can see Saguaro National Park, and you bet we're going to visit that on Google Earth. So if you picture a cactus, like in your mind right now, what do you see? You see the big guy with the arms branching out, That is a saguaro cactus. Very tall, very impressive. And when we were driving down this highway here, and this highway here, and we went over top of a big mountain, and below was just hills covered in saguaro cacti. I could not believe my eyes. I wish I was filming, but I was driving. And it was so stunning just to see thousands of them across the hills. It was so amazing. It is such a strange, bizarre, beautiful plant. Down here we also have the capital city of Phoenix, which is the largest capital city in the U.S. per population and per size. You can see all the various major suburbs here, like Scottsdale, Mesa, Tempe, Glendale, among many others. This whole area is the largest capital city metropolitan area in the U.S. Isn't that interesting? Further down, we come into an area that's very iconic in American history, a place where many ghost towns now reside, the most famous being Tombstone, where we have the famous shootout at the OK Corral. That's where that happened. And let's see, I'm trying to remember anything I forgot. I forgot the crater. Right? I just lost it. Where'd it go? It's by Flagstaff there. The Big Meteor Crater is the largest impact crater on soil. There's many others underwater. Chicxulub is just down there. But this is the largest and possibly the oldest meteor crater to have hit the planet. How cool is that? And it being in the plateau area, it's exactly how you imagine it. It's flat land, and then there's a giant circle hole in the middle. It's a perfect, like if you had to draw a picture of a crater, that's what it looks like. It's so interesting. Let's see. Why don't I grab my tablet so I can show you the UNESCO sites of Arizona, starting with, of course, the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon National Park. It says, carved out by the Colorado River, the Grand Canyon, which is nearly 1,500 meters deep, is the most spectacular gorge in the world. Located in the state of Arizona, it cuts across the Grand Canyon National Park. Its horizontal strata retrace the geological history of the past 2 billion years. There are also prehistoric traces of human adaptation to a particularly harsh environment. I'll show you some pictures, but we're definitely going to look at this on Google Earth. See all of the stunning sights here. Incredible shapes and ancient artwork on the cliff sides there. Little squirrels can ride the burrows down to the bottom, or mules, I should say. Bighorn sheep live in the cliffs there. It is just a very, very beautiful, beautiful place. All the ancient trees twisting around. Beautiful waterfalls. There's lots of deer. Beautiful flowers as well. There's also one other UNESCO site in Arizona, technically. Just a while ago, when was it? 2019, they added the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright built a home in Arizona known as Taliesin West. This article mainly has to do with like falling water and the Guggenheim, like it's the far more famous buildings that Frank Lloyd Wright created, but I'll read this quickly. The pictures aren't even of the one in Arizona, so let's just read this quickly. The property consists of 8 buildings in the United States, designated designed by the architect during the first half of the 20th century. These include well-known designs such as Falling Water in Mill Run, Pennsylvania, and the Guggenheim Museum in New York. What'd I tell you? All the buildings reflect the organic architecture developed by Wright, which includes an open plan, a blurring of the boundaries between exterior and interior, and the unprecedented use of materials such as steel and concrete. Each of these buildings offers innovative solutions to the needs for housing, worship, work, or leisure. Wright's work from this period had a strong impact on the development of modern architecture in Europe. So yeah, that's that. But I just thought if I don't say it, someone's going to leave a comment saying you forgot one. So I didn't. I set that over there carefully. Okay. Let's talk about the history of Arizona. If we're not counting the billion years of the canyons being formed and the crater happening, Arizona's history began many thousand years ago, the arrival of various indigenous peoples, and there were many of them. We had the Anasazi, the Hohokam in the south, the O'odham also in the south, the Hopi, who I learned their creation myth begins in the Grand Canyon. They believe their people came out from the Colorado River at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Like emerged from the earth, among many, many, many others. And they all had their very different cultures depending on which part of Arizona they lived in, right? Because, the ones in the south were more deserty, the ones in the north were more foresty, right? Given the geography. The Spanish in the 1500s started to slowly creep up from Mexico and discover the area up here. The expedition of Coronado between 1520 and 1522, I just realized I wrote the wrong date on my notes, 1522, is when the land was claimed for Spain. Coronado was looking for gold, of course, and he reached the Grand Canyon. His troop was the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. Instead of just being wowed and amazed, he was just like, he went to the people there and were like, where's the gold? And when they were like, huh? He left. Which I would have stayed forever if it were me, but that was his decision. He had another agenda, right? He wasn't sightseeing. Slowly but surely, the Spanish began to populate what's now Arizona. Many missions were built to, convert the natives, not just to Catholicism, but also to a Western way of life. And they also built presidios, which is like a walled town, a fortified town, in the late 17th and then throughout the 18th century. In 1821, Mexico officially declared their independence. They had their land, and this became part of Mexico. The region was called Nueva California, and it included, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, of course, California, this whole parts of Colorado. Massive expanse of land, right? And after that, many Mexicans moved into the region to start their own lives, and so did many Americans. They came into the Mexican territory to farm and start their own lives in a new area, which boiled over in Texas in the 1820s, 1830s, which led to Texas declaring independence, trying to join the U.S. It sparked the Mexican-American War, which Mexico was whooping America until the Alamo. America doubled down and doubly attacked. And the war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which Act was signed in 1848, and it gave a huge chunk of land to the United States, which includes all the states I mentioned before, including Arizona. And that territory further expanded in 1853 when I'm looking for the river right here. The Gadsden Purchase gave America land south of the Gila River, so this chunk here, to create what we now have as Arizona. But they didn't call it Arizona back then. It was all New Mexico down here. This area, which is still called New Mexico, and right here, was known as New Mexico, and it was an American territory, but that's about it. But the people here evidently wanted to be a recognized state. So in 1862, when a lot was happening over in the States, half of them split off to form their own country. The area here and the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, made an agreement that the Confederacy would recognize the state of Arizona as part of the Confederacy. They helped out with the South in exchange for that. The United States, up in the north, recognized that they were going to lose a lot more land than they expected. So in 1863, the U.S. officially created Arizona Territory. We had New Mexico and Arizona. A lot went down in the mid to late 1800s, besides all of that. Sorry if you hear my tummy. I suppose to start with, we have the Apache Wars, which began in the 1860s. This one Arizona website I read said they ended in Arizona in 1886, but they stretched until the 1920s with the Native American Apaches, led by Geronimo, fighting against the Americans for their rights, and many battles were fought in Arizona. There was also a silver rush in Arizona, which led to the creation of the boom towns. Where silver was discovered, a town would spring up near the mine, and when that mine dried up, everyone left. The town was left abandoned, thus creating a ghost town. But not long after the silver rushes, copper began being mined, and like a lot of copper began being mined in Arizona. And I believe what I read it in the museum, how Arizona is still America's #1 copper resource. And the big dome on the Capitol building is made of copper. Let me see, anything else I need to mention before I hop into the big news? Because on February 14th, 1912, Arizona became a state. I'll show you the clips here of when I was in the room where Arizona was officially declared a state. There was a decision needed to be made by the people living in Arizona. A referendum, that's the word. Whether they wanted to be part of New Mexico or to form their own new state, and they voted to form a new state. And it was the 48th state of the United States. So we call it the contiguous United States, or the lower 48. This was the last one. The other two would be Alaska and Hawaii. Just to mention briefly, because there were a lot of exhibits on it in the museum, the USS Arizona, which it's a huge honor to have your state given to a battleship. And the USS Arizona was stationed in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And then on December 7th, 1942, it was sunk by the Japanese during the sneak attack that day. And you can still go see it in Hawaii underwater. But lots of it is it's actually back in Arizona, in Phoenix. I'll show you the clip here of a big piece of the hull that's in the museum. And outside the museum, there's a big memorial park. All kinds of memorials where I filmed the intro. And they have I just forgot the word. The mast, I think, of the USS Arizona there. Arizona also helped participate in World War II in that Phoenix had a German POW camp inside, and many places on the outskirts in the middle of nowhere in Arizona had Japanese internment camps where Japanese living in America and Japanese Americans were rounded up and put in these camps. Very horrific chapter of American history, one of many, but a chapter nonetheless. The 1950s saw a big boom in population, mostly because air conditioning became a thing. Also, many people to come and down and stay during the winters, where their home would be cold and snowy. In Arizona, it's beautiful. So we were there in January, right? And we got to our hotel in Phoenix, and the guy at the front desk is like, "The pool's open also," and I'm like, "Really? Like, it's not too cold?" And he just stared at me like I was crazy. Of course, we just came from a snowstorm in Nevada. We came down here and it was pristine and beautiful, right? Nice and warm. Also, many companies moved their headquarters to the Phoenix area. And, that creates more jobs as well. A strange thing that Arizona is known for, at least for me, one of the things I think of when I think of Arizona, is the number of for-profit colleges in the state. I tried looking it up, but I couldn't find anything. There has to be some kind of loophole that allows for-profit colleges to be able to set up so many campuses in the state. Surely. Phoenix had billboards for all different kinds of colleges. And if you don't know, a for-profit college is exactly what it sounds like. You give them the money, they give you a degree. It's rather dubious. But I mean, you do go to classes and stuff. You do still learn stuff. But you graduate if you pay your fees on time, and that's about it. Most more like graduate schools and more prestigious jobs won't recognize your degree if you're at a for-profit college. But if you need a degree for whatever reason, it's easy to get in Arizona. And I think that's about it for history. Let's hop over to, oh no it's not, I forgot. As I'm tracing over here, we have the Hoover Dam over here by Lake Mead, the Hoover Dam, which, we'll take a gander at Google Earth. When it was built, it was the largest concrete structure, I think, in America, maybe even the world. It didn't hold the record for very long, but it is a very impressive big dam there. Lake Mead helps supply lots and lots of water to Arizona and California and Nevada, but mainly, like, we can see Las Vegas is right there. Mainly just Las Vegas. And that's important in a state like Arizona that gets very dry and deserty, right? So, I think that's it. Let's transition over to the tablet so we can look at this beautiful state on Google Earth. And we're going to cut here. I'm just going to... So here is Arizona. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here's the United States, Canada, Mexico up here in North America, and here's Arizona, down in the American Southwest, right? And you can already see from the landscape up here how interesting it is. Lots of forest areas, lots of dry areas, lots of desert areas here. So let's explore. Why don't we go south to north this time? let's start in Tombstone. There we go. Tombstone is now a big tourist attraction where everything is as preserved as it can be, and there's lots of stage shows depicting the shootout at the OK Corral. And you can go and pretend that you live in the Wild West for a day. It's one thing we didn't get to do, and I'm kind of sad about it, because it looks really fun. Lots of music and museums. There's a mule, very sweet. All lit up at night. It is iconic Americana, isn't it? There's the museum. Very iconic. Down here we have here's the Coronado National Forest. Another really beautiful place, but see, look at that. Isn't that stunning? But if I'm going to show you my cacti friends, I gotta show you the Saguaro National Park, which is over near Tucson. Where did Tucson go? It's up here. There's Tucson, another very major city, and here is Saguaro National Park. Or look at these big boys here. Absolutely incredible scenery here. Beautiful, beautiful cacti, and yes, they are very silly and goofy, but when you see just hundreds of these things on a hill, it's so impressive. It's so interesting, all their little shapes. And of course, they have flowers. That's the national flower of Arizona. I'm sure you saw in the videos. I'm adding them in editing, so I don't know what I'm showing you. But it's pretty hard work there. Such a fascinating place. You can only find these in this corner of the world, Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico. So neat. Another like classic American site, right? Over here we have the Sonoran Desert. That of course bleeds into Sonora in Mexico. Let's check out Phoenix real quick, because one other thing that we didn't get to go to in Phoenix, if you're wondering what we did do, my channel members have an exclusive video of when we went to the Phoenix Zoo. My sister and I love animals, so we had to do that. But there's this site here, which is, as if you can see, a museum. Lots of potsherds here. But this is an archaeological site they've built a lot of adobe structures here, but there's a preserved archaeological site here that's been dug up. Phoenix, I didn't talk about Phoenix's history, that it was an indigenous metropolis that for whatever reason the people slowly but surely left, and it sprung up again, and I want to say the Spanish occupation times. It slowly dwindled down again, and then see, look at this, that's incredible. When a new town was established on the site in the 1800s, they said it was a city rising up like a phoenix from the ashes. That's how it got its name. It also wasn't the first choice for the capital city. Look at that cacti. That would have been Prescott. Let me show you. Shirley Prescott's going to pop up if I zoom out. Shirley Prescott's going to pop up when I zoom out. There it is. Prescott. I think Sedona was also a capital for a minute, but they moved it to Phoenix quite aggressively. Let me show you. Here's the Capitol Museum. This is where I took all that footage at. And here's the beautiful Memorial Plaza. We went through all of these and looked at them, paid our respects to many places. But they built the Capitol building. Here you can see the big copper dome there. I tried to get on film. They built it before it was officially made a state. So part of their argument about why it should be a state is that they already had a Capitol building where they are already passing laws, so may as well make it a state. Very aggressive, but it worked. Oop, I'm going way too far out. Okay. Let's see, I'm trying to think of all the things I wanted to show. There's so much to see. I highly, highly encourage you to explore the state on your own and see what you can find, because all of these forests are absolutely stunning. Here's the Petrified Forest, where you can see some of the painted hills in a minute. Look at these. There's a better picture here. Oh, it's a beautiful sunset. There's some petrified wood right here. So it has been fossilized. It's turned into a rock. Some dinosaurs as well, of course. And let's see, here we go. The beautiful stripes in these rocks here, showing not only the layers that have been slowly exposed by erosion and wind, but the composition of the rock. Very fascinating. Look how beautiful those stripes. Let's see. Flagstaff is also nice. We stopped for lunch in Flagstaff. It was very nice. Fun little Route 66 town. Oop, I don't wind up in California. Let me zoom out. Let's slowly make my way north. I promised I would show you the Hoover Dam, which we wound up driving past in the middle of the night because our flight was super, super delayed. Right here. Yes, the Hoover Dam. An an architectural wonder of its time. For a hot minute, like I said, it was the largest dam and definitely the largest concrete structure. Of course, now goes to China by a lot. But it has all of this neat Art Deco design around it too. Very typical of the early 20th century. So yeah, I guess I can say I've been to the Hoover Dam. I drove past the Hoover Dam, but sadly it was in the middle of the night and I couldn't see a single thing. I saw a sign that said the Hoover Dam was there. They died to make the desert bloom. And many, 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 many lives were lost building the Hoover Dam. And I think, should we hop to the Grand Canyon? Is it time? I don't think there's anything else I wanted to show. There's so much I could show you. The Kaibab Forest as well, which we also got to explore and play in. But let's check out the Grand Canyon. Let's do it. The crowning glory of Arizona and the American Southwest. The Grand Canyon. I know we looked at there's the big watchtower. The highest point of the Grand Canyon is up here at the top, as you can see it all. We talked about the world's deepest canyons in Peru a few weeks ago. This is called Duck on a Rock. Can you see it? Little duck. But this one is just so much more beautiful. Isn't that incredible? You can see all the temples here, they're called. And I'm going to have a lot more about the Grand Canyon for you later this week. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. And believe me, you don't want to miss this video. So, pretty waterfall. Let me take you in so you can really see the scope of this place. Just how absolutely massive it is. Let's put it in 3D. It's so spectacular. There you can see the Colorado River slowly carving out this absolute miracle of a place. It goes forever and ever and ever. It's so incredible. I wonder if we can go to the bridge. I don't know if I'm gonna find it. I'm lost. It's so big. I think it's down here. See, it keeps going, dude. It's so big. Skywalk. I think it's further down here because they advertise it in Vegas that you can go see the Grand Canyon in a day. But they have, I don't know if I'm going to find it. The pictures there are okay. But it's like a glass walkway over the Grand Canyon, which you couldn't pay me to do that. But apparently it's owned by an Indian reservation, and that's where they get the majority of their money for the reservation. So there we go. Alright, I think I'm going to end it there for the night. Let's end in the Kaipop Forest, because I loved the Kaipop Forest. Thank you so much for watching. Bison. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. This is actually America Week. We're spending this whole week in the United States because next we're going to Arkansas, which has a tiny little corner of my heart because that is where my family is from. I'll tell you an interesting story about how my grandma knew a rowdy, pesky boy in her neighborhood of Hot Springs who would grow up to become president of the United States. I'll tell you all about it. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night.